Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Clarity from Chaos. I'm your host, Dave Campbell. If you're a first-time listener and like what we're doing here, go out to my website on Substack and hit the subscribe button. The site address is clarityfromchaos, all one word, .substack.com. Also, while you're out on the website, you can go to the About tab on the top ribbon and see who the guests are that we have lined up for the upcoming months. So, are you feeling helpless by today's news and the events around you? Well, that's exactly how they want you to feel. The direct attacks on your Christianity and your church are meant for you to think you are the center of the universe and not God. Please understand that this negative energy is being projected everywhere. We need to come together and have faith in God and His ability to combat this evil. Belief is what's needed. Discard your negative thoughts and develop positive ones. You will see a change in yourself and the people around you. So before we move on, I'd like to share a scripture, and this is from Mark 11, verses 22 through 24. And Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. Truly I say to you, whoever says to the mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you will receive it, and it will be yours." We are incredibly pleased to welcome back to Clarity the CEO of one of America's leading insurance firms, Mr. Tony Holland. Tony has been recently inducted into the West Point Association of Graduates Lifetime Giving Society, which reflects on Tony's dedication to faith, perseverance, and leadership. And it also underscores his mission to give back to the community. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, Dave Campbell. Honored and blessed to be on your show, my friend.
Well, honored to have you, my friend. So let's start out talking about healthcare reform, or the lack thereof.
I like how you add that second part there.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to reform anything, Tony. So The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, they just seem to keep kicking that can down the road. And we need serious reform. As you know, the Affordable Care Act was put into law back in March of 23rd, 2010. And it's been more of the Unaffordable Care Act. There's been a lot of challenges, and it's been frustrating for most Americans. I talk to people every day. I talk to brokers and agents and the consumers. They're very frustrated. They're confused. And some of them are getting pretty irate and angry about the situation.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately, it seems like everything that the federalists touch, they mess up. And they don't seem to be predisposed to bow themselves to the subject matter experts that are out there, like yourself and others, to actually formulate something that makes sense. They, for some reason, think that because they're in public office, they somehow have gathered some extra wisdom somewhere.
Right. I think when they get elected to office, they think they know more than everyone else. And most of these politicians have never been in business. 99% of them don't understand healthcare at all, but they're passing and enacting laws and making decisions that affects the whole. And I had a conversation with a client the other day, and the client said, "It'd be nice I had the senators and congressmen's healthcare plan."
Absolutely.
If they had to go through this, it'd be a different situation. It's pretty challenging for most people that are in the know, that those that are voting and making decisions and making plans for healthcare, those plans aren't for themselves. Their plan is completely different what they have when they work in Congress or in the Senate.
Yeah, I think if we enacted something where they had to eat their own dog food, Tony, I think things would be completely different.
Absolutely.
I think Social Security, retirement, everything would be completely different. And if you look at it, if you had a barista job and were making 25 or $30,000 a year, in 3 or 4 years, you'd be a multimillionaire. So
Absolutely.
look, you have an entire country of millionaires at that
Yeah.
point, at the rate that
And
they're going.
yes.
Uh, so my and unfortunately, I say it in jest, but
We could take that in a whole nother conversation. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
understand where you're
yeah.
coming from there. Yeah.
Yep, I understand. So something continues to bug me, Tony, and maybe you can explain it. Why are monies collected on a state level transferred to the feds in DC and then reallocated back to the states? Why are not the monies collected at the states handled at the states level?
Well, because some states, there's about 22 states that want to handle it on the state level, and they're able to do that. Then there's about 28 that want the federal government to handle it. So that's a very, very good question. But they have that decision to do it themselves. Some of them have the bandwidth to do it. Some of them don't, and then defer to the federal government to handle it for them in terms of the enrollment process for ACA and the subsidies and all that goes into the healthcare program.
Yeah, now I guess in the case of Minnesota, I wouldn't want them handling it, or California,
No, no,
or Ohio,
no.
or Massachusetts, or a
Well,
few, yeah. So
but we're seeing it not just in healthcare, but in our government as a whole. There's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse, and it's very shocking to most Americans. And I think on both sides of the table are very, very shocked at what's really going on in our government. And we need clear reform, especially in healthcare. We need reform in the government overall.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I completely
I think
agree
we need
with
to
that.
clean house and start over. That's my opinion.
No, I completely agree with you. And for some reason, we I don't know that we don't have the stomach for it, Tony. It makes me wonder when you sit here and I, like millions of other people, yourself and everybody else, sit here and listen to the news and listen to the things that are come out, listen to the things that Elon Musk and his team have popped up. We don't hold our political representatives accountable for any of that. And this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is across the board.
Yeah. Well, something I'd like to share with your audience in regards to this
Sure.
discussion with ACA. I was talking to one of my associates who's an expert in ACA and does a lot of our training support. And that's what I've told your audience before. I'll give my information at the end if they want a qualified associate to help them with this information. We have agents, brokers all across the country that'll help them that are state certified and also federally certified to be able to discuss this topic. But we were talking about last year, there's 24.3 million Americans on the ACA Obamacare program. Do you know the start of this year that dropped to 5.9 million?
Whoa.
What do you think? 18 million were due to fraud or to those that weren't able to take advantage of the enhanced subsidy. That's shocking. I'm sure that's going to change by the 15th because they still have the 15th of this month to still enroll for coverage that starts by February
Right.
1st. But I was shocked to learn that number today, in preparation for our call. That is that's an extreme number. And the young lady I was talking to with her name is Kiera, she said 10 million enrolled into the plan when the enhanced subsidy started back in 2021. That tells me about 8 million were potentially fraudulent. Because guess
Ye-
what? I'm going
or
to tell this to
dead,
your audience.
or
Or
dead,
dead.
or
Or dead. But
dead.
get
Right.
this. Do you know one of the requirements they're asking for starting in 2026 is now a social security number? You would have thought that would have been mandatory from the beginning.
Yeah, day one. I would have
So,
I would have thought it would have been a day one
no.
requirement.
It wasn't. Anybody could show up and no matter where they were from around the world, come into our country and take
Oh,
advantage of those subsidies in the healthcare system. And I've said that on many of my calls. If we can get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse in healthcare overall, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, whether it's ACA or healthcare in
yeah,
general, we get
yeah.
rid of that, it could be affordable for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here looking at trillions of dollars in savings that could go back into the bucket that could enhance people that really need it, right?
Right. Well,
Go
well,
ahead.
you have companies that are gaming the system, and that was one of the big challenges. If you go back when the government shutdown happened, that was one of the big challenges most Republicans had. That the $35 billion in subsidies that were started back in 2021 with the American Rescue Act, and then extended to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. That $35 billion a year was really subsidizing the carriers, and they had a lot of challenges with that because there were some people that weren't even utilizing the benefits, but enrolled into the plans. Where'd that money go for that subsidy for that individual that didn't even use the plan? So there was a lot of challenges there that the Republicans wanted to make sure we're going to spend this money, we're going to invest this money, taxpayer dollars, we want to make sure this $35 billion goes to those that need the benefits. So that was the big hang up overall during the shutdown last year. And I truly believe, even though we just an hour ago found out that
Right.
they passed, an extension of the subsidy. It still has to go through the Senate and then has to be signed by Donald
Trump.
Trump, which I don't
Right.
I don't believe it's going to happen. I
I
think there's
don't
going to have
either.
to be some reform. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't either. I know at least at least part of what I read, Tony, and for those that didn't read this, that Omar had earmarked $1 million for her little private group there in Minneapolis, and I think that got pulled. I think Chip Roy. I think that got pulled out. That earmark got pulled out. But the fact that they extended the subsidies for ACA, and we had Republicans that jumped the fence for that.
17 of them
Yeah,
right out the gate. 17.
yeah, yeah. And I think Trump came out and said that they shouldn't be reelected. You know,
They did say that. They
yeah,
did because we're in a real crisis in this country. I mean, we're in a huge deficit. We're spending money like you wouldn't believe, and finding
right,
out all this fraud that's going on. I mean, just look what's been going on in Minnesota for years.
right.
I mean, for Christ's sake, what's going on? And it's not just Minnesota. There's other states, namely
No,
California and
yeah.
Massachusetts and Maine. There's all kinds of fraud that's going on. I think we really need to tighten down on what's going on. And I've said this many times in the fraud, what's going on in the fraud, waste, and abuse in our government, and especially in healthcare. If we want to get true reform.
Well, I think to your point, if we just scrubbed all the bad actors out of this system, we'd probably be fine,
Absolutely.
because you're talking in terms of trillions of dollars that is spread among all the bad actors out there, and it's shameful. It really is
Yes, it
shameful
is.
that money is doled out, is taken readily by the state, local, and federal governments. Those monies are taken from the taxpayer and spread out there without any kind of regard or any receipt on where that money is going. I mean, they asked Newsom where the $24 billion went for the homeless campaign that he was
Right.
putting on in California, and he couldn't answer it. He didn't know
Right.
where the money.
Right.
Now,
Right.
now, if you were a CEO of a company and the board looked at you and said, "Where the hell did that $24 billion go?" and you said, "I don't know," there'd be
I'd be
somebody standing there
fired
with
and going
that.
and probably be prosecuted and going to jail.
Exactly. There'd be somebody standing there in
Exactly.
less than an hour with a cardboard box and a security guard going, "Pack your shit, you're out of here."
Yeah. And the police waiting outside and the FBI Department of Justice to take you to jail.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's where the American public is at this point. Is they're sick and tired of knowing that if they did something fraudulent, that would be exactly what would happen to them.
Exactly.
And here you have these politicians that get away with it on a daily basis.
Yes.
And
All the time. There's no
and
checks and balances. There's no
no,
checks and balances.
none
And
at all.
sometimes there's one back scratching the other. One guy's looking the other way while he's looking the other way on him. And it's just, there definitely needs to be some serious cleanup in our government overall.
Right.
And I think that's what Elon Musk and Donald Trump attempt to do with the whole Dodge. But it was amazing just within months what they uncovered. Can you imagine they spent even more time? What they'd find out what's really going on behind the scenes in Washington, and it would shock every American what's really going on.
Well, yeah, and then I think what's even more shocking, Tony, is the fact that you have legislators that won't codify the findings and won't fix. If you had an auditor in your company that came up to you and said, Tony, you're bleeding money out of this division, and here's the reasons why, the first thing you do was take steps to mitigate the money going out the door. That'd be the first damn thing you did.
Exactly.
And here we have legislators. Musk and his team went through the Doge thing. The balance of Trump's first year, I guess they were in there for 10 or 11 months. And they haven't done a damn thing to codify any of those findings at all.
Well, that's what most consumers I speak to share with me. We find all this stuff. When are they going to jail?
Yeah.
When is there going to be accountability?
Right.
What are we going to do about it?
Right. Exactly.
That's what frustrates most people. We uncover the fraud. We uncover the waste and the abuse. I mean, they're pretty much stealing from the American taxpayer.
Well,
what are the consequences?
Well, it absolutely is stealing. And what amazes me, and then I'll jump to another topic, but what amazes me, Tony, is there's not pitchforks in the street. There's no, and I'm wondering, and I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on. I'm wondering if that's what the whole J6 tribunal was to keep people from assembling in Washington, D.C. with their pitchforks going, enough of this BS. We want it fixed. And I think that was the shot across the bow to the American public. This is what can happen to you if you show up and speak up, right?
Right.
So I'll take my tinfoil hat off now.
And unless you're for a different agenda, if you're pro, little kids getting, transgender surgeries, or you're pro criminals getting out with zero bail release, if you're pro certain agendas in this country, you're just fine.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it is.
Let's get back on ACA.
We'll talk about that when you come back on the next time.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about Medicaid eligibility, because I think a lot of people wonder about legal versus illegal on that whole thing. And when I look at how they've structured it, and you mentioned earlier about Social Security numbers, and I'm wondering about the whole registered to vote kind of thing and everything with that. How all of that plays into that now.
Well, as I said earlier, that was shocking to most people I speak to about this subject, that up until this year, you didn't have to have a Social Security number to apply for the ACA program. That should have been,
that's amazing.
Number one, your name, your address, your Social Security number. Those are the three things you should have asked for. But that wasn't part of it. And that's why illegal immigrants were able to take advantage of that opportunity. And they've done it in Medicaid. They've done the same thing in Medicare. And it's unfortunate. We have anywhere, depending on who you speak to, anywhere from 10 to 15 million illegal aliens still here. Well, when they get sick, they're going to use the healthcare system we have, and many of them go straight to the hospital, which is 4 to 5 times more expensive than they would going to a provider. And it really puts a strain on the program for the hospitals, for the providers, and for all of us that are on the programs legally. It costs more for the rest of us. Someone's got to pay for that expense. It falls back on the taxpayer ultimately, which is unfair, I believe.
So they've paid for it on the front end, and then they continue to pay for it on the back end, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so the politicians have really bent the taxpayer over the barrel here, and they're getting them 2 or 3 times. The taxpayer, I don't even think they even realize, Tony, just how bad they're getting hammered, right?
Well, and that's part of this whole process. This is my belief. That's why they keep people divided, so we can't really see what's going on behind the scenes. I think if we all become, like we were back at 9/11, if you remember that time, it was the one rare time I saw every American, whether you were on a blue state, red state, we were all on the same team for once. Since we've been divided, there's been more corruption, more fraud, more waste, more stealing, and they're getting away with it. And ultimately, we have to have a reset. We need to have a reset as a country, as a whole, to get back on what makes sense and have common sense leadership, or we're going to fail ultimately.
Yep.
It can't sustain itself. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of people out there that, especially Democrats that criticizing Trump. We have to do something. We have to do something. We can't keep spending away at these programs and supporting these issues that are happening when we got billions and billions of dollars going overseas. We got billions and billions of dollars going to people that don't belong here. That hurts the taxpayer ultimately, and it hurts future generations. I'm worried about our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, their futures.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. So let's talk about what Congress, knock on woods, is trying to do to fix this. I'd appreciate your insights around it because I haven't seen what I would consider some kind of a quantum leap forward in solutioning where we're at right now because as we talked about, they just kicked the can down the road again with the subsidies, which tells me that they don't have a plan sitting on their desk,
Right.
right?
Well, here's what I believe is going to happen. As you know, today, an hour ago, hour and a half ago, they passed a 3-year extension, just kicking the can down the road. I think the Senate's going to debate this over the next week or two. And I think they're going to come to some type of middle ground to where we'll have maybe a 2-year extension. So that gives them time to work this out during the current administration. I believe there's going to be income limits, income caps, minimum monthly premiums. I believe there's going to be no zero plans. I think that these are options I think are going to be there. There's going to be various restrictions and regs I think they're going to be implemented. And I think they're also going to extend the open enrollment period because right now, as of today, they have until the 15th to get into a plan by February 1st. But this time next year, there's only going to be one enrollment period. That's it. It's only going to be the enrollment period from November 1st to December 15th, and that's it. That's it. So I think that's going to have to change. So those are just my opinions based on what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and people in the know that I've been speaking to about what's going on in Washington. I think that's where they're going to end up settling with something in the middle ground. I also think they're going to have additional resources and support for HSA related, as you and I talked about that, the
Yeah, I was
healthcare
just gonna
savings
ask about it.
accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
Yes.
gonna ask
Yes.
about the HSAs
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yes.
catastrophic is and
Yeah.
long-term health, long-term
Yes.
care. You
Yes.
know, I didn't know where if they were going to address any of that.
Well, there's always been alternative options, regardless. There's critical illness plans, there's hospital indemnity plans, there's short-term medical plans for up to 3 years. There's catastrophic coverage. There's direct to primary care where you actually can negotiate with your provider
Yeah,
and
right.
get direct coverage. That's what I had when I was a little kid. That was a very common plan. And there's also healthcare reimbursement accounts that you can get through your employer. So there's multiple options. And that goes back to what I said earlier, Dave, to your audience. Work with a qualified broker in your market that knows the different variables and different options in terms of what they can select in terms of healthcare coverage of their choice that best suits their needs.
Yeah, yeah, and I would trust that there are companies out there that are reliable that that your brokers would steer these people towards,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
as long as they're not headquartered in Minneapolis.
And
My
Somali descent.
Exactly, exactly. My goodness. Yeah, that I'm not quite sure where they're gonna go with all of that. And my other question, I think, is what are we gonna do with the corruption around this stuff? Because we've gotta have an appetite for actually bringing accountability to these people, and I'm not sure we have it, Tony.
Well, I think the one big step is having more verification. It should have been a no-brainer, have a Social Security
Yeah, I would
number.
have thought so.
I think they should add even, you have to have a utility bill or show proof you live at this address.
Right,
I think there should be some different validation and verification that you are who you
right.
are and that you are a citizen, that you do pay taxes. I think that's important. I think also they need to make some changes because currently part of the fraud issues that happen in the waste and abuse that happens is that you have people switching plans in certain demographics month to month. I think that creates challenges in the program, which also leads to corruption. I think we need to have checks and balances on the carriers to make sure, hey, you're utilizing that money appropriately. Okay. We need to have checks and balances on the providers to make sure they're not submitting tests and exams that they didn't do on that specific patient, to make sure they're not double billing or overbilling or fraudulent billing. So I think we need to have a check and balance system on the whole system, from the carriers to the providers, and also to make sure the consumers. And then I'll add that other part of it, making sure your clients work with a qualified broker that's certified. There's some unscrupulous brokers and agents out there in the business, especially those that work in these call centers. Many of them are offshore, and thank God the Department of Justice shut that down about a year ago. They just need to be very cautious on their end. And I tell all consumers, make sure you do your due diligence. So you don't get harmed by the corruption and fraud and the challenges that are in this business. So make sure you shop your broker. Make sure they've been in business 3 to 5 years. Make sure you check their certifications. You can call the Department of Insurance to make sure that there's no complaints against them. I always tell clients, make sure you get referrals from your broker to say, hey, did this guy do a good job for you or not in terms of handling your healthcare? No different than having someone work on your house or work on your car. So I think everyone has to do their part to make sure that this corruption is eliminated in terms of our healthcare system.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and I think they're starting to do this now, Tony, is holding the states responsible for providing accurate death rolls so that you can cross-reference, that you don't have John, signed up in Medicaid and John passed away 4 years ago.
Right.
And the same with Social Security.
Exactly.
The people on the managing end of it need to have valid data. And a lot of these states seem reluctant, just like with voter rolls, to supply accurate and current information. And for the life of me, Tony, I can't figure out why that's so difficult unless they're playing a shell game, right?
I think there is a little bit of that. I think some of it is incompetence, and I thought auto is bandwidth. I've gone to a lot of meetings with healthcare organizations, and their margins are slim, so they share with me. And I truly believe that's why I got heavily involved in artificial intelligence. I think AI can help fix a lot of these challenges in the long run, help do some of these checks and balances and validation and verification that a lot of these states don't have the bandwidth and the financial resources to make sure they can meet the standard. And I think that's going to be the next wave in healthcare is AI. I think it's going to transform it and hopefully help eliminate a lot of the fraud, waste, and abuse that's been going on for decades.
Well, I would probably say they have lack of resources because a lot of those resources are going into other houses and cars and stuff that they're buying, as opposed to paying attention to what they're supposed to be managing, right?
Yeah, well, just like Minnesota. I mean,
Yeah,
they estimate a minimum of $9 billion. Can you imagine the lives that could have been changed in that great state? That $9 billion of those resources where it went to the people that was supposed to go to.
right.
And I think there needs to be a call to action. There's some people that need to be locked up and going to jail over this.
Yeah,
Some of those politicians in Minnesota and many other states need to be held
yeah,
accountable. And
yeah.
I pray one day that happens. I really do. I pray it
Yeah,
happens.
it's not just Minnesota. I mean, California is like right there at the
Yes.
top of the pyramid. Maine is in there now. Ohio's in there. Massachusetts is in there.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I think probably at the end of the day, you're going to see just about every state in some form or fashion is going to be a fraudulent component in what they're doing. It may not reach, say in Alabama, it may not reach the 9 billion point like it did in Minnesota, but I can't sit here and think that there isn't a lot of fraud going on in Alabama just because it's a red state versus
Right.
Massachusetts being a blue state.
I'm sure it's prevalent everywhere. And
Yeah,
either way, I don't care if it's a red state, a blue state,
doesn't
conservative,
matter.
Democrat,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's our money. We're the taxpayer, and we need to hold people accountable for once.
Yeah, and
And
we
that's why
deserve better, right? Yeah.
exactly, we do deserve better. And whether I tell people all the time, I have debates with people about Trump, and then I'm like, I'd rather have him than what we could have had. Okay. You want to make
Oh,
complaints about, can you imagine if Kamala would have won, where we'd be, and the challenges in regards
no.
to what could have been? this fraud would have been escalated. And that's part of the challenge that I don't think people want to dive into, especially those that are well-meaning people on the Democratic side. They really don't want to look what's really going on underneath the hood. They really need to hold their leadership accountable, because some of this stuff is pretty obvious. And just with a little bit of common sense thinking, I think most of us can figure out what's really, really going on. I mean, you have politicians that go in uh, negative net worth, and within 4 years are worth 30 to 40 million dollars.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to their financial advisor.
Yeah, that's what some retirement plan.
Yeah, exactly.
4 years.
Yeah, and besides being on their health care and everything else.
Best healthcare in the world, to get 40 million in 4 years.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And you were working as a bartender or a waitress prior to that.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the reason I say amazing is because I probably say disgusting more than I need to.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the enrollment, because the primary enrollment, right, ended on the 15th of December.
Yes.
And there's the enrollment completely. It opened on 11/1, closed on 12/15, then opened it, and then you've got a 1/15 where that open enrollment ends, and then the coverage starts on the 1st of February.
Right.
And then you said they're changing the rules for 26.
Yes. So November 1 to December 15th is the original open enrollment period.
Right.
For those that didn't make a decision for whatever reason, had until January 15th, which is next Thursday, to make a decision for coverage to start by February 1. So those that I spoke to earlier, the 5.9 million, those are the ones that made a decision by December 15th, their coverage started January 1. Those that haven't made a decision and still want to have up until next Thursday to make the decision for the coverage to start February 1.
Right.
Now, next year, there's only going to be one enrollment period. That's it. The November 1 to December 15th period. That's it.
What are they going to do? Yeah, go ahead.
They're predicting possibly to change that, to extend that. But that's part of what's going to be debated in the Senate. That's going to be the topic probably next week.
So there will be no more special enrollment periods?
Well, there's always going to be special enrollment periods. When someone loses a job, someone loses income, they can qualify for the subsidy. So there's always going to be that special election period. Those are going to be there. I'm talking about the basic open enrollment period. Is going to be different this coming year.
So the people that have a special set of circumstances aren't going to be just twisted in the wind. They have the ability. And are they going to do away with the state-specific dates? Is it going to be a national open enrollment period?
Yeah, there is a national open enrollment period. That's the November 1st to December 15th.
Right, but
that's
then
a national
certain
enrollment.
states have different dates.
Yeah,
right?
it depends. Everyone's different. So that's those 22 states that run their own marketplace. They have their own set of rules. So the national open enrollment is November 1st to December 15th. And as I said earlier about the enrollment period, some of these special election exceptions, it's really what is an exception. We would love to see to make this simpler and easier and more cost effective if they get rid of the month-to-month change. Because right now, where they have said someone can have a special election every single month, they doing away with that would make life a lot easier for everyone that's in the industry, especially the carriers and also as well as the brokers. Because ultimately, these clients can't keep switching every single month or every other month.
Right.
Right now, they can do that if they have a special election period.
Okay. So give the audience your contact points and stuff, since they've got another week. They've got until next Thursday.
Thursday.
They haven't done anything. And
by midnight.
They're looking for a broker to actually give them information and some wisdom on where they need to go.
Right. We have over 600,000 brokers across the country. My company that I'm managing partner, integrity.com. I run the business unit Global Premier Benefits. That's my company that's part of the Integrity umbrella. We have over 600,000 brokers in every state across all 50 states that can handle these questions, that are fully certified by the state and fully certified by the federal government to handle these questions. They can go in deep depth, spend the time they need. And here's the best part about it, Dave, it doesn't cost you anything. We're paid for through the carriers that we work with in terms of
Okay.
recommending the appropriate plan. So there's no cost in that. And we're going to be able to give you the appropriate guidance and what you need in terms of making the right decision, whether it's critical illness benefits, catastrophic coverage, or ACA might be the best plan for you. But there's different options. There's bronze, there's silver, there's gold, okay, and platinum. You got to make sure you're working with a broker that understands what's in the best interest for you as the consumer. And you can reach out to me direct. I give out my cell phone number, which shocks people. You can call me direct on my cell phone number at 443-253-3633, and I'll personally talk to you and guide you to a broker that works right in your local market to help you get the best advice and support that you need.
It's terrific, Tony. As always, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure. And
Pleasure's mine.
I think we've popped open. Unfortunately, Army didn't win.
I know. I was at the game.
I know.
1
Army,
point.
yeah,
It was a great game, though. It was a great game.
It was. Unfortunately, they didn't win. When I was sitting there jumping up and down, going, come on, but it didn't happen.
Hey, Navy had a great season. I was very happy for them because when it's all said and done, we become one team. About an hour or two after the game, we shake off the frustration and the anger of the loss. We come back to love our brothers on the Navy side. And
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
a Marylander first and foremost. So I grew up not too far from Annapolis, so the Naval Academy always have a special place in my heart, along with all military veterans. And those of you that are listening that have served, we thank you for your service, because we wouldn't have the blessings that we have in our society today if it wasn't for you, great men and women that have served so gratefully to our country.
Like I said, as always, Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait until we put our heads together and have another conversation.
Yes, sir. Anytime, my friend.
So,
God bless you. Thank you,
God
guys.
bless. Bye.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaospodcast.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.